still funny like usually, but kind of like
we lost.
I don't know. Maybe okay. I guess Eli's out.
He just went to bed.
Did he just leave?
I didn't realize his voice powers his webcam, dude. His voice just went out and he's gone.
Skipping through the end times.
Hey everybody, we're here.
Hey,
Eli's in a bad mood.
I'm cranky and I'm here to express myself. Hey, what's up, guys?
Are, dude.
Welcome back. We're here to talk the brand new Marvel Studios entry into Phase 5, Ant-Man and the Wasp QuANTuMAnia. What?
Yeah, have you guys seen it? It came out yesterday, and we both saw it yesterday. It made me kind of it was like the first MCU movie in a while that I've seen like opening day, like 7 o'clock, and it kind of made me like reminisce about the days of actually going at midnight and like committing to it. Like, how long has that been? Like at least 10 years, right? Since we've done that, 15 years.
Yeah, I mean, basically since the advent of being able to reserve your seats ahead of time, it really took away the need to get there beyond. It's funny because I've always been somebody that gets a lot of anxiety about showing up to the movies late. When I was younger, I used to love getting there early just to watch the trailers and such. But now I'm like, I don't need to go. I got half an hour from when the movie starts to when the actual movie will start because the trailers are just out of control. So I did see it, and yeah. But
that's me at the airport where I'm like, everybody's like rushing to get inside this like metal container, and I'm like, I'm good. I'm good being the last person that gets in there and spending the least amount of time in there as possible.
Same, definitely the same. But yeah, it's been a long time since I've I think the last time that we did it was for The Last Jedi, but I don't know. I feel like we would have been able to reserve seats by then, so that could be wrong. But yeah, it does take a little bit of that anticipation away, that build up.
But you don't have to spend out 8 hours outside in the cold, so that's the upshot.
That's true. And you if the movie sucks, then you don't have to anticipate something all day and then be let down by 9 to 12 hours later. So I think that's a benefit in and of itself.
When's the last time that's happened to you?
Oh boy. Honestly, I don't remember. The last late movie I went to was Avatar, which was a mistake because that was obviously over 3 hours. So you're in it till I was there at the movie theater till about midnight. But I wasn't necessarily disappointed with that movie. So I don't know. It's probably Last Jedi. Last Jedi was probably the last movie that I went and saw. No, sorry, it's got to be Love and Thunder. I didn't have to wait all day, but that was definitely a movie I had been anticipating and really looked forward to, and was very much let down.
We got to bring up Love and Thunder on every single podcast episode. For the next
that's
3 years.
That's the measuring stick, though, right? I mean, Love and Thunder is truly the acid test, so to speak. So I use it whenever I can. I think it paints a pretty clear picture on the way I feel about stuff.
The thing that I'll just start off QuANTuMAnia by saying this.
Okay,
thing I was the most impressed with in the whole movie was at the end when it's revealed that the word QuANTuMAnia has the word ant and man in it, and they're centered in like on the word.
Dude, I didn't go down exactly that way, but I really had the same thought process. I remember sitting there waiting for the end credits, seeing that and going, "Oh my god, like I've never seen this like in a thing." And then it made me go like, "Ooh, did they pick the name?" Like it must have just been happenstance that it worked out that way. But then I was
made you just like go down a rabbit hole of like, is this what the whole movie based on the fact that they can do that in QuANTuMAnia?
I have to add.
And they didn't even use that for the marketing.
Yeah. I literally went, "Whoa!" in the theater, like out loud. Hopefully, no one heard me, but I had no idea that was coming. I had to add.
Yeah, no, I was definitely surprised by that, and also
that was like the true after credit scene.
Because I always thought the name was really cool, right? I thought it was like really unconventional.
It's kind of goofy,
yeah. It sounded like a theme park ride more than it did like an actual film. But yeah, no, that came to as a surprise to me too, dude. I'm glad we all kind of had the same. I imagine most people probably had that same reaction.
Yeah. So, what'd you think, man? We didn't see it together.
No, and honestly, I haven't really even talked to you about it, hardly at all. So I really don't. I mean, I could probably guess on some.
There were a couple short sentences and gifs that were sent, but that's about it.
Yeah. It was a pretty bad movie. I mean, it was pretty. It's tough, right? Because I'll come right out and say it since I just built up the Love and Thunder. I did not dislike it as much as I did Love and Thunder. Movie started strong. I liked the beats at the beginning with Scott Lang and the bit about the autobiography, and then I found out later that they're actually releasing that. Did you know that they're releasing that biography that Paul Rudd is like doing?
Really, like an actual
memoir for Scott Lang that's like from the movie. So I was like, that's
awesome.
That's genius, and kudos to Paul Rudd for being committed to the bit that much. But yeah, it started strong. I enjoyed it when they all got sucked into the quantum realm. That was the first part where I was kind of like, oh man, I don't know now. This is weird. And one part I was stoked on it because the imagery reminded me a lot of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Like everybody being sucked in. So I was like, oh, that's kind of fun. But man, when they get to the
I think you mean the real part of that franchise was Honey, I Shrunk the Audience. Was the true gem that I worked on at Disneyland, and I took a lot of pride in it.
That's one of those things that when it existed, I always hated it, but now that it's gone, I'm like, I'd love to just go back and get shrunk one more time.
The 80th time I watched it, I really started to get it and really appreciate it, I think.
Yeah, that's the thing that you don't realize when you go to those like theme park movie attractions, that there's somebody sitting there at Disney 10 to 12 hours a day, just regurgitating the same thing over and over. So I tip my cap to you, my friend. That's not easy.
Well, I switched off between that and the Astro Orbiters, which are,
that's a little bit more
the best ride at Disneyland.
Yeah,
it's the ride that everybody looks forward to.
That's the Ronald Reagan of it's like no controversy around this ride at all.
We all know what it is.
Yeah, it's gonna, but yeah, so as soon as it gets to the quantum realm, I felt like it just went all over the place, and people say that a lot of. This movie was all over the place, but this movie was really all over the place. Vince, I couldn't help but think of you when I was watching it too, because I was like, I bet Vince is really going to dig this movie, because I know like you're definitely somebody that tends to like sci-fi pulp 1950s and 60s era sci-fi horror movies. But man, I almost like it was so wacky that I either wish it doubled down on how wacky it was, or it pulled back a little bit. And I don't know, honestly, I can't tell you. It was so dense.
It seemed like they were
concepts.
Yeah, it seems like they were wanting to do like a Rick and Morty live action.
Exactly.
That's what Eli seemed like.
I called it thrift store Rick and Morty, dude. And the crazy thing is like, that's what I mean. I guess that's what I mean is like, commit to that and do that. Don't water it down, which this movie has the fingerprints of reshoots just all over it. And I think that's probably a lot of what I'm feeling like what I'm responding to. But so that part of it was interesting and kind of fun, like it was this world in the quantum realm that you don't know what the quantum realm looks like. So you can go creative and do as much wacky things as you want, but it just made our main character suffer. And I really, number one, I couldn't get over the idea or get over the fact that this should have been the second movie. This is the movie that we've gotten when we wanted to explore where Janet Van Dyne had gone.
We talked about it. I remember that when we went to see Ant-Man and Wasp, we were like, oh, like most of the movies got to be in the quantum realm, right? Like that's pretty awesome. They can go on like this adventure story. And that's really what this one was. So it's really like the second one was almost like stalling because they knew there was going to be a third one.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then we have the payoff here, and
or did they though? Because that's the other thing is maybe they did. The Kang element of all of this felt very shoehorned. It didn't feel like whatever original idea they had for this story and going into the quantum realm. The Kang stuff it felt so shoehorned in, and it wasn't anything in particular from the performance. It felt like, well, this is the big bad now. And it made me reflect on the Thanos in the Infinity Saga, because the way they peppered, you didn't see Thanos and he wasn't a major character. I mean, I guess you could argue that he kind of was in Guardians, because that's the first time you kind of see him fully rendered. You see
it's just like a cameo though. really. It's only one scene.
Right. But it wasn't, I mean, he was...
You feel his presence in the first Avengers.
But he wasn't the main antagonist of any of those movies.
He's just alluded to vaguely. Yeah, for sure.
So it's weird now that you're shoehorning in Kang, and it feels a little bit like they're trying to cut the line. And I'm jumping all over the place, but so did this movie, so I don't really feel like it's unwarranted.
You're trying to give us the experience of the movie.
But I also struggled, like, dude, what the hell happened to Hank Pym? Like, why is Hank Pym in this movie? He's like geriatric Hank Pym. I was so hoping. So there's like that's the way it felt. Like, Grandpa, we need to take Grandpa out. We can't leave him at home, so we're gonna take him in the quantum realm. We're gonna go on this road trip, but we're gonna have to talk to him like he doesn't understand things, or that he didn't create Pym particles, or all of the lines of dialogue we're gonna give him are obviously inserts that we just randomly threw in there that don't really have an arc for Hank Pym. What happened to the Hank Pym that they set up in the first one, who was volatile and would snap? Where did that come out? Why wasn't there, when he finds out that Janet has been down in the quantum realm having an affair for 35 years with Bill Murray? why didn't we see volatile Hank Pym come out, dude? Like,
that's by far my main thing, and this has been an issue since Ant-Man and Wasp for me. Was my number one thing is like, why? Like, it was so weird in Ant-Man and the Wasp, because the whole thing is getting Janet back. She's been stranded in this insane place for 30 years, and then it's like the first time we see her, she's able to communicate through Scott Lang, and we basically are substituting the plot and the character of her by like this joke that Scott Lang's like talking like a woman, right? I forget kind of what it was, but he's basically like, "Oh, sweetie, blah 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 blah."
Yeah,
and it's like just a joke, right? Because it's like, oh,
Steve Martin 80s comedy.
He's talking like a woman, but I'm like that. So it's like a mid joke at the expense of making sense, and like, why would she talk like that? Like, she's been in the quantum realm for 30 years. Like, how is she's not completely screwed up, like psychologically, like, and that would be like such an insane thing to like find somebody in those circumstances. And then it's like, they don't explain it at all in that movie. And then it's like, now it's like 5 years later or whatever, after Infinity War, we just had to pretend like nothing happened because of that. And now we're back here and it's like, no, she just didn't tell anybody anything, like literally anything. And I'm like, it's like you guys have, like, you have your husband here, or your former husband, you have your whole family, and you guys are both scientists that studied specifically the quantum realm. So on some level, whether it's one of those things, why would you not like share what happened? And why, if you're Hank Pym or any of the other characters, were you not like, how are you just okay with her not telling you anything? They're just like, she doesn't want to talk about it. It's all good. It's like, wait, what?
It doesn't make sense from what they've set up the MCU Hank Pym to be. That's the thing I really enjoyed. I went back and I didn't rewatch Ant-Man and the Wasp because I turned it on and I was like, I remember what this was. I don't need to watch this. But the first Ant-Man movie, I really like what Michael Douglas did in the way that they portrayed Hank Pym. Like I said, he was super volatile. And even though he was an older guy, you still, like, situations would come out to where he would have these over-the-top reactions to things. And I just like, there's another movie here that's more ballsy that they either didn't want to do, or it got chopped up and a bunch of stuff got reshot and a bunch of stuff got shoehorned in just so that we can fit the Kangness of it all. But I didn't understand.
He's like that. Grandpa. He is kind of like a grandpa, because you have Cassie in a much bigger role in this, and he's almost like acting like her grandpa.
But going back really quick to what you said, because I wanted to piggyback that of what you like, in the way that Ant-Man and the Wasp use that comedic bit to undercut the characters. I felt like that was just rife throughout this movie.
Yeah.
And it just made everything suffer, in my opinion, because you number one, the trailer and what they sold this as was not this movie. Normally, I don't really care. Like, everybody gets all up in arms about like, oh, the trailer, they put in stuff that wasn't in the movie. They're trying to lie to you. I'm like, dude, no. You really expect them to put major plot points and characters and surprises in the trailer? And I almost appreciate that they do that. But in this one, the overall plot, they try to make it seem like it was this story about Scott Lang and his daughter, and that's not what it was at all. It ended up becoming about
Janet. It was like kind of that, but also kind of another thing, and also kind of another thing. And I think that was another thing I have on my list too. Is like they sort of just like took a bunch of different ideas they had and tried to do all of them, so like none of them were sort of really flushed out. But I that's such a huge thing that you mentioned too about like the comedy, because so much of the comedy in this like either didn't land or just kind of like, you know, like going back to like 10 years ago Marvel, you know, you had all these like DC Snyder people or whatever, like people that wanted to hate on the MCU and everything. You know, they'd be like, oh, the movies are formulaic, blah blah blah, and it's like, dude, no, they're not. Like, they're doing all these different things. Like, just because they're funny doesn't mean like. But this movie to me seemed exactly like that, where I was like, I could see when I was watching it, it was like I could see the script, and it was like, oh, we want to have X amount of jokes here, and it ended up being this like what felt like a formula of like plot, joke, plot, joke, even when the jokes weren't funny, and the jokes were like at the expense of like characters, because when the MCU is at its best, you know, when you have like, particularly from like the Russo brothers movies, the jokes are integrated in the character, and that's what makes them amazing. Like the one I always go back to is like Endgame, where Groot and Thor, you know, and Rocket appear on the battlefield, and you know, Groot's like, I am Groot, and then, you know, Steve's like, I am Steve Rogers. Like, that's funny, like in and of itself, but like it's funny because of how earnest we know that Steve Rogers is. Like, it's grounded in that reality. And like when this movie did those type of things, they were just sort of jokes to be jokes. And so it almost like took you away from the immersion of the movie, because you had to be distracted by this joke that was kind of outside the movie. And then it was like, okay, well, back to being kind of serious. Okay, well, back to a joke. Okay, well, kind of serious.
Well, they're jokes that are not set up. They're jokes that are just punchlines, and the way that they're used is almost transitionally. What you just described of Groot and Steve Rogers, that's a joke that's been set up for freaking years, and movies that have come before it.
Because we know his character. It's all grounded. Yeah.
There's none of that stuff here. There's no setup for anything. It's like a lot of what they established these characters to be, they went back on, and they weren't part of these characters anymore. The Cassie Lang of it all didn't work for me at all. I didn't care about her. I didn't understand why she had a suit. I didn't understand why she was the one that created the signal to the quantum realm. And like, has Janet just not been there the entire time she's developing this to tell her like, hey, that's not a good idea, and here's why?
Yeah, so those are the elements. It was really convenient that everything happened at the same moment in that first scene to be like, wait, you guys are talking to the quantum realm? It's like, wait, really? Hank never mentioned this in the last 3 years? You guys have like been hanging out?
Right.
Like,
and
does no one communicate anything ever in your family?
And nobody's like, is nobody helping her? Like, nobody's around her when you're not at dinner, and you all have the same interests in this very specific scientific field, but yet you're not going to talk about it, or you're not going to bounce ideas. So they're just,
and then they get there, and Hank's like, whoa, this is crazy. I didn't know this was here. And she's like, oh yeah, duh, this is the quantum realm. It's like, wait, what? You guys never talked about it?
Or what about the She-Hulk like conversation Cassie has with with Scott Lang in the car, when Hope is in there, who doesn't say anything. Hope's only here in this movie to be like, yeah, or no, or what, or what. I cannot believe how they butchered that character. I cannot believe how like everything that they established before, they call it Ant-Man and the Wasp, and they just have never given.
Yeah, they have co-billing, dude.
They've never given anything to the Wasp. They didn't give anything to her in the last movie. And it just anyway, they're in the car, and Cassie's like, what have you done, Dad? I'm out here with the protesters. What have you done? And he literally saved the entire, like, all of existence.
Yeah.
And was the one true catalyst in defeating Thanos with the rat. You got to give the rat credit. But it's like, you're gonna come at him. It just, the whole premise of it was flimsy, and it just,
I mean, it's like a teen angst kind of thing, but like, Yeah, then it was like I didn't even remember that scene because then Hope too like takes her side or something, like when she's like,
I don't remember.
No, you're being hard on her or like whatever. It's like, no, he is. Like,
no, he's not.
Like, what are you talking about?
Give him a little bit of respect here. Like, stop treating him like he's Tim the Toolman Taylor and give him a little bit of respect here. I mean, yeah, he makes jokes, but he's like a legit hero. And you're just, I don't know. So it felt that was very She-Hulky and very, I mean, it's kind of in line with the same trend as everything we're seeing. All the male heroes get crapped on and are, talked about, or the butt of jokes, which is fine, whatever. I thought the end of that scene was really great, though. The joke with the audiobook that he's listening to it in his car. I thought that was really funny. And
I thought that was funny, too.
There are moments here where, of course, Paul Rudd does his thing and he's really funny. And then it takes a turn and it's like, you go from one scene about some alien amoeba creature talking about he doesn't have any holes and that he only respects humans because they all have holes. But yet the next scene, you're having this like touching moment between... I
think that would work if it was executed right. Like, to be honest,
that's
like,
what I'm saying.
because I feel like, okay, let's take the whole creature thing for example. Like, okay, that's like kind of funny and cute or whatever, but like there were so many choices in this movie that felt kind of just like random, like they just brainstormed for like 15 minutes and then just kind of went with whatever they thought of without like tying things together, because like obviously that whole conversation was to set up the end where he gets shot and has a hole and then like eats the other guy with his hole, so it's like a callback, right? But it's like in the first place it like wasn't that funny in the first place and didn't make that much sense, because I'm like, he's fascinated with your holes as a human, but looking around, like half the people in the quantum realm look exactly like humans and are basically are humans. So I'm like, why are you asking him how many holes you have? He looks the exact same as the person standing right next to you, who would obviously have the same amount of holes. Like, it's just things like that don't quite make sense.
Yeah, and they don't like that was never established either. All right, let's talk about the Bill Murray-ness of it all. I think that Bill Murray scene was, I loathe that scene more than anything else in the entire movie. I really hated that scene. It encapsulated the problem of this movie, which was, we're going to lead Bill Murray's character into this scene, and we're going to set it up, and we're going to shoot it in a way that lets you, the audience member, know this is a cameo. We're playing on, like, this is the Marvel U. This is a cameo. And then you find out that it's just Bill Murray, which I knew was coming, right? Because I think he was in one of the last trailers, and I knew that he was cast in it. So I knew he would be used in the exact way he was used. And it just, like, it really bothered me.
For a bit, we thought he might be MODOK, but then that was, like, refuted at some point.
Yeah, which we'll get to.
Yeah, dude, I was like, I didn't get that, like, he wasn't in the movie. Apparently, like, it goes to that wide shot when the octopus gets, like, super big.
Yeah,
and is like causing chaos. Apparently, in that massive wide shot, you maybe see Bill Murray's character killed or something, but nobody I saw it was really sure about that.
Yeah,
so I don't know what happened. I was like, so an hour and a half later in the movie, I'm just like, wait, what happened to Bill Murray? Why is he just not in this movie? And then like the person next to me was like, I think he died earlier. And yeah, it's just like, wait, why is he like in it if like.
Yeah, so that just bothered me because it was literally taking you out of the movie to go, we got Bill Murray, guys. You know Bill Murray? And Bill Murray and Bill Murray these days is used in the same way as Jeff Goldblum, where he's just a caricature of himself and he comes out and does stuff as Bill Murray, which normally I like Bill Murray. It's not a Bill Murray thing.
So you guys know him. He's funny, remember?
But it's like, think about something like in Ragnarok, where the Matt Damon, Luke Hemsworth, all that stuff, Sam Neill. I mean, those are all inside jokes, winks and nods. Those are people that, Taika's worked with. One of them's the brother of the star. But it was never like, I don't know. It was portrayed in a way that was like a side. Here's what happened. It's a funny joke. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. But this one was just so like, we got Bill Murray, guys. Here he is. And it just, I don't know. It just, he's like,
guys, Bill Murray's going to show up for 3 hours to shoot this one scene.
So, and not to mention Evangeline Lilly the whole time is just reacting. She's not like, I don't think she had more than like 2 lines of dialogue. she's just making like surprised faces at what was going on.
Yeah, I didn't really think of that much until you said that, but that is really true. And like even the end in the climax, you kind of just forget about her, and you're
100%.
just like, oh yeah, it's an Ant-Man movie, so he's just trying to punch out Kang and getting his butt kicked, and then she comes in at the end to like shoot her stingers at him that I guess affect Kang for some reason. And I'm like, oh, okay, right. Okay, yeah, she's here. And then it kind of reminds us, oh yeah, remember they're like together romantically, like at the very end of the movie. But like we didn't really see that before that. It almost seemed like it was set up to be like an adventure family movie, which I was kind of stoked about, because that's also like what Fantastic Four should be, like when it's at its best, you know, they're all together, except they weren't really together like the whole time. They were in the quantum realm. Except maybe like the very, very end. Yeah.
So what did you? All right, let's talk about MODOK.
Oh, I was gonna say real quick, one thing with Cassie that you brought up. What's interesting too is that character was recast.
Yeah.
From who Endgame. I don't remember her name, that portrayed her in Endgame, that I thought was good. So that's just an interesting choice that I thought that was like. Was that worth like recasting? Like, is what we got like better than? I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, for sure. But I think Vince, you'll have to hop in on this one because I know Vince has some strong feelings. Let's talk about MODOK, and I almost feel like this is going to be the thing everybody talks about.
Is me hopping in on this or MODOK?
What?
Everyone's going to talk about me hopping in on this or MODOK?
Maybe. It depends on how good you are.
So Vince hopping in.
By the way, Alcohol Vince is back, baby.
Oh, dang. Yeah.
Oh, now you're not Whiskey Vince? You're just general alcohol Vince?
Red-faced fucking drunk Vince. Let's go.
Wow, that's an aggressive...
Here comes the F-bombs. It's funny because we never have F-bombs. The only F-bombs come from Vince, and I have to like... Do I leave this in here or do I take it out? Oh, it's half his dialogue. Okay, I'll leave it in.
It's all Vince.
He's the degenerate of the...
I'm the MODOK of the group, dude.
He's the less...
I'm a dick, all right?
You're the MODOK, dude. You've always been the MODOK of the group.
Yeah, dude. It's my little arms.
I see you now.
Yeah, so I thought MODOK was the stupidest thing ever. I can't believe that they put that in there, and I just like... the way they did it, I'm just like... Why did you do it that way? Like, take out the bad CG. That's whatever. Half the CG in this movie was good and half wasn't, in my opinion. But
yeah, some of it looked pretty green screeny, I thought.
But I just like, I can't believe they used Darren Cross. If you would have picked anybody else, like your whole premise is that you're in the quantum realm and like Kang created MODOK. So what? It could have been anybody else. Could have been any other actor. I mean, that to me was the part I disliked about it the most. They tried to shoehorn him in there, and it just like it didn't work.
I feel like it was like that thing where they're thinking about it as like, wait, Ant-Man's a trilogy, but like it doesn't seem like a trilogy because it's kind of like this one is just so different than where the first one was. So like, how do we find a way to tie it back? Oh, Darren Cross. That's how we tie it back.
But dude, I just wish that they would have gone any other way with it. You know, I wish that they would have. If I understand MODOK is not going to be easy to do in a live action setting. Like, it's going to be tough. The premise of MODOK is wacky and works a lot better in a comic book. But there's a way you could have done it.
Yeah, I didn't hate that. Like the whole time it was happening, I had to keep thinking like, do I like this or hate it? I'm not really totally sure. Like, I'm stoked that we got to see a live action MODOK. I'm glad that they showed his real face, like, because at first, you know, you see his like armored face, and I'm like, oh, I hope it's not just like the armored face, and then lifts up and you see his like literal massive face. It looks like the most goofy thing ever. I kind of don't mind that. I'm like, that's just like
I'm 100% with you, Dave. Where I was like, okay, this is shitty, but also it's a character that I never imagined would actually be in one of these movies. And like, how do you make it not shitty? It's freaking MODOK.
And I am stoked. I did like how they really emphasized his like very small mini hands. Yeah. And they also, I think you see his MODOK butt at one point.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, you do. You see MODOK. Dude, did they need to spend? Because I disagree with that. I wish that they would have just. I felt like it would have worked so much better if they would have kept his mask on. But with that being said, they spent so many times in close-up, like in a close-up of him, that I was just like, why are you doing this?
Dude, at least they committed to it. That's all I'm going to say.
They committed to. That's the only like bit they committed to was MODOK. And
they committed to it.
I don't know. I didn't dig it.
It was a ballsy move bringing back Darren Cross as MODOK, dude.
I mean,
like, ballsy for better or worse, that's a ballsy move. I was sort of like, yeah, but I will say like really more of the negativity of that crept in when we got to the like sort of trying too hard comic relief of it, where like we had to have this like heartfelt moment with like Cassie talking to him, and he's sitting there and he's just like,
I know,
and she's like, you shouldn't be bad or whatever, and
don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick. And then he's sitting there, and he's just like, I am such a dick, or like whatever he says, and I'm like, dude, why would MODOK be self-aware that he was a dick? MODOK would never accept that he was a dick, dude.
Also, how does MODOK know who the Avengers are? Like, he's been in the quantum realm, right?
That's a good point, dude.
The Avengers were formed when he was
yeah, actually they were, because Ant-Man is after the first Avengers, so he would have known him from Battle of New York.
Oh, you're right.
Technically.
But he didn't know Scott Lang was in the Avengers.
No, that was obviously just like a wink. Again, a thing, right, that we're talking about that doesn't fully make sense.
Yeah.
But it's just like a wink at the camera. I mean, I did think that was kind of funny that it's like, I don't know, when he's like, at least I die an Avenger. He's like...
See, like just Dave's responses to all this MODOK stuff, like it wasn't well done, but it was funny, dude. Like it was.
Dude, there were parts that were funny. I definitely laughed at that part because Scott Lang's like, what does he say back to it? He's like,
you're in.
Sure, bud. You're in. That's pretty funny, dude.
Yeah, I mean, Paul Rudd was great. And
does it make sense? Not really, but like. Whatever, in a vacuum, that's pretty funny.
I had something to add to it. Dave, you're talking about how it kind of was like plot joke. I feel like the best description of that being the case was when Scott Lang was like multiplying, and they had the one version of him as the Baskin Robbins guy, and it completely defeated everything they were going with in the sense of like, oh, each one is going to duplicate, because there was only one of those, so it was specifically him there as a joke, but he never multiplied. Everyone else did, and then that one joke was just there as a joke and nothing more.
Yeah, because they even explain it as like, you know, those are all your possibilities that you could do. And I was kind of assuming right away that it was like, oh, in that moment, you know, he's diverging and his mind is going in different because he could respond in all these different ways. But yeah, then they just have like a Baskin Robbins. And then it's like, okay, wait. So it's like versions of you in all of time.
And there's only one.
There would be like, they wouldn't all look like Ant-Man. They would all look at like a million different things. So yeah, that doesn't really make sense either. And we saw the Baskin Robbins got version like 3 or 4 times. Like it calls attention to it.
And it's just that one. And it's like the visualization of a joke. Because like that's all it was just there to be funny and nothing else.
Yeah, not really. I mean, yeah, because they could have, like to Eli's point too, if they committed more to it, it could have been cool. Because like that concept that like, oh, he could have never left Baskin Robbins. Like maybe if he was never fired, it would have never sent him on this other journey of like stealing Pym's suit, and like he would have never gotten to be an Avenger. Like maybe that is a version of him, and that's kind of interesting. But they didn't commit to that or explore it at all, so it kind of just like is there.
You could also have another Scott Lang that mirrors Baskin Robbins Scott Lang, you know? Maybe a Scott Lang barista, and the Scott Lang Baskin Robbins is like, You're telling me I could be this? Like that's his like, oh my god, I can't believe that I could ascend the heights of baristaism.
That would be funny if that's who he was like, and like he's not envious of like the Avenger versions of himself.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah,
he sets his sight as like
as a black apron
like that. That's funny
at Starbucks, dude.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, even in just brainstorming that right now for like a couple minutes, I feel like, you know, there'd be like some funny ideas that like could have been. But I mean, visually that part of it was pretty cool, where it was like they're like ants and they're creating like a thing. But yeah, there's just a lot. Another thing that comes to mind, just because we're in that section of the movie, was like, it was interesting that like Kang couldn't do anything until he got technology enough to shrink someone down to a specific size, and that was the only way to like get the thing out of the thing.
Yeah.
And it was like happened to be Scott Lang. Like he needed. It just seems weird that out of all his technology that he has from like centuries in the future, he was never able to like get that. Like they like ability to like change size or like do anything. But it was also weird that MODOK like knew everything about that area, where MODOK was like, oh, what's the possibility thing or whatever he called it. Like he seemed to know about all the area, but like they had never been there because they couldn't get small enough.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's another plot thing that was kind of like a little bit I guess coincidental.
Yeah, what did you think of Kang?
Yeah, I thought what's that guy's name? I thought his performance was pretty good.
Jonathan Majors
in general. Yeah. I like despised everything that character was in Loki so much.
Yeah.
That I was a little bit like I guess I was a little bit like surprised that it worked. I mean, you know, obviously like he brought like a little bit of like sadness to it. His like bravado that I thought was pretty good.
Yeah, I thought also Kang in action was pretty awesome. Like the visuals of it, you know, of him just blasting people. And I thought, you know, in terms of a one movie bad guy, which we know he's going to be the bad guy in the, you know, the overall multiverse saga, but I thought as the main antagonist of this movie was pretty good, you know, and that fight scene between him and Scott I thought was kind of awesome. Although there was a couple scenes where I could tell the stunt like that it wasn't Paul Rudd, which obviously we know it's not Paul Rudd really fighting, but there were two scenes where I was like, whoa, they didn't try to hide that wasn't Paul Rudd. But I thought Kang, you know, it's interesting. You know, I saw a lot of people bitch about him dying in this one, which I don't obviously, who knows if he's dead, but I honestly thought that was the right choice, because if you're establishing this kind of all powerful being that is in every timeline and wants to conquer every timeline, I thought that was an interesting perspective, because it's a reminder to the audience that he might be gone, but there's all of these different you know, variants of it.
You can easily get away with it because there's literally thousands of other Kangs.
Yeah,
so it just doesn't even matter.
Which they show you at the end, but the council.
And speaking of that, I'll say something good. I thought his suit was really awesome. It was like so comic accurate, but also like just genuinely like looked cool. Like they pulled off a straight from the comics. And like it's funny too, because people like somebody asked me like, oh, like what are some good like Kang comics? And then I was sort of like researching like message boards and stuff, and like nobody really has an answer to that. It's kind of like the Kang stories are always like pretty convoluted. Like there aren't really like great ones. I don't know. So I think that's kind of funny too. But I was a little bit. Were you a little bit unclear about this Kang's motivation in the movie? Because the whole time, I don't know if I missed something, but I couldn't really quite grasp. Like, it's like, well, okay, obviously he's a bad guy and he's trying to like get out, but also like, why exactly was he exiled? And like, what was he going to do when he got out? Was this just straight revenge? Like he was going to go after the other Kangs? But he also acted like, oh, well, it's going to be really bad if you don't let me out. So I don't know. It was just kind of like unclear on that.
Yeah, the way I understand it, and I don't know much about Kang the Conqueror from the comic books, but you know, at the end credit scene, they show the Council of Kangs, which was kind of awesome too, to see all of the different. What's going to be fun with that guy, with Jonathan Majors, is seeing how he mixes up portraying the different variants of himself. That's got to be fun as an actor and exhausting.
Yeah,
to be able to come up with it. Well, I thought he did. I mean, I thought he was good in the Council of Kangs scene, you know, where he was kind of having to do that already. But yeah, I mean, I understood that he was exiled. Why? I don't know exactly. I knew, you know, but the way I understand it is that the Council of Kangs wants to get rid of him because they're not all wanting to conquer every timeline. But the He Who Lives, I guess, is this variant, wants to conquer basically every timeline throughout the entire multiverse. So
he was like an extremist, like the most extremist of the Kangs.
I always put it in Judeo-Christian, you know, value system, but it's kind of, you know, to me, it kind of was like the fallen angel story. of, you have all these angels, but you have the one that's like, why are we doing this all for, So, so that's, it was vague. I think it was vague on purpose, I think.
They kind of established it, didn't they? He kind of mentioned at some point.
Janet literally tells you. So a lot of it comes from like other people saying what Kang's motives are. You don't necessarily always see them, but yeah, I thought.
But she doesn't even know that because he just lied to her the whole time. I guess that was my question. Is like, yeah, I don't know. Like, it's never really confirmed. Like,
also, why is Janet telekinetic? Is that like a thing that was established before, other than?
Oh no, it's just because she touched his. Yeah, that was also kind of a thing that was like just convenient. But like it's because she touched his ship, and his ship was like based on thoughts. That's how you pilot. He would like pilot it. So she like saw his thoughts, which is also kind of weird because I'm like, wouldn't he know that? So wouldn't he like not want her to touch it?
Yeah, he kind of
would know that she would know that.
Didn't he mention? Because I did watch some videos after the fact just to kind of get like my mind around. Because I don't know much about Kang, but didn't he mention in the movie that the end of everything is coming because of the different variants of himself, and that's why he's there to like not only like
I think
he's there to like no you're good he's there to kill all the other variants and all the other variant universes, because if he doesn't, everything ends.
Yeah, okay, that's what tripped me up, because when he said that, I was like, oh, maybe it's going to be revealed that he's actually a good Kang. Or something, because he's trying to stop the other Kangs. I think that's what tripped me up, and then it never went back to that again. So I was like, oh, I guess he is just evil.
That kind of falls into like all the Loki storyline, though, yeah. But then also in the Loki storyline, he talks about how. So I watched those other videos, and they were kind of talking about how that Loki in the TV show could potentially be that Kang in the TV show could potentially be the last living Kang, because he talks about this battle of the Kang, not dynasty, what is it, the Council of Kangs.
I think that was a Q video you actually were watching, Vince.
Yeah, so I'm still
in. You sent to me that you were trying to get me to go to the meeting, and I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. So he's gonna save us all. We just have to storm the Kang capital.
It was the Council of Kang, but Kang was spelled with a Q. I thought that was weird.
It's Quang. It's right in front of us.
But it made me want to watch the Loki show again, because I know how much you guys love it and how much I loved it. But he talks about all these battles that happened with the other Kangs, and the thing that I watched that was kind of discussing it was potentially that Kang, am I saying it? I'm saying it right? He's talking. He's Kong. He's talking about battles that haven't taken place yet, because in the TV show, that Kang has seen everything and says, like, it's all a freaking loop, man. Like, all of this is going to happen again. If I die, I'm just going to be back. And he's kind of talking about what could potentially be happening in the next Avengers movie already. Which, like, if they were able to wrap that all into one and make it make sense more so than this movie was able to do it, it would be crazy that they gave you the spoiler 4-year, whatever the timeline, years before it happened.
Yeah, especially because like they allude to a lot in this movie. He says a lot in this movie too that like basically like time doesn't mean anything. Like basically like
it's all wild.
Like all of time is existing at like the same point. Once it's almost like an ego thing from Guardians 2, where like he's so far removed from like humanity that just nothing matters anymore, and he just sees time as like one thing, not even like past or future.
Which I feel like once you get this, like once you get a character that is godlike, like I can't wait if and when they ever do Galactus. But like morality is out the window at that point, and anything that's like a human factor of morality and or like what we think good and evil, like when you're that big and that strong, like even the Eternals that we watched, like the whole hang up was like, oh, you can't kill planets to feed yourself or to spawn something new. But like in that case, it doesn't matter because the greater good. And
Eternals was basically like, that's another reason I was a little bit bummed at Eternals, because they basically did Galactus in that a little bit, right? Like what you're saying, like, because that is Galactus too, where it's like, well, it's all just feeding like a higher power of balance.
Yeah,
so it's almost
and
like
it's all here to
your
feed
mortal
him.
souls don't even mean anything.
Yeah. So I love all those aspects. Much like you guys said about this movie, it was not done very well. Me and Eli kind of talked about it because I saw it at 3. I saw it pretty early. I left work early, but I loved all the like the sci-fi aspects of it. I loved the Holes guy. I thought it was funny. It definitely was humor to be humor. I love the Holes guy. Eli mentioned that it was like a bad version of Rick and Morty, and that instantly I was like, oh crap, yeah, it is, dude. Like I'm censoring myself now.
It just felt like darn. They were fans of Rick and Morty, and they obviously modeled a lot of this stuff, I think, similarly to that show. But number one, Rick and Morty were probably 2 to 3 years past its like relevancy, I think, and especially now with everything going on with it. But I just
bad timing now.
But I just felt like they didn't really commit to it, and that's the thing that I can almost see. I wonder if they committed to it more in whatever initial version before they went and did a bunch of reshoots. Because I saw something today on comicbook, I think it was .com, that was talking about they had a leaked plot of the original version. It was like way different. So, all that being said, like I said, I didn't hate it as much as Thor: Love and Thunder. There were elements of this movie that were still fun, that were enjoyable to watch. I think, I'm a fan of like colorful things, and it's definitely a colorful world. I just wish that it made sense a little bit more. And I wish that in some of the areas they chose to go uber wacky, they would have grounded it a little bit more and made it a little bit, because I think, all of the different ingredients of a family adventure movie, then you have a multiverse movie, and then you have, basically Star Wars-esque wannabe of like, we're going into this world with all these different creatures and humanoid looking people that aren't humans. So I just felt like all of those things they were all trying to be their own movie, and I don't think it made for a cohesive cohesive movie in general, but also a cohesive movie in the MCU that, other than really establishing Kang a little bit more, I don't feel like it gave us much other than like we're going to make a pit stop right here with Scott Lang, and then we're going to keep on moving with phase 5. And it just didn't feel like there was a lot of stakes. But I honestly, one of the other things, this is, is going to sound contradictory, but I also like wouldn't mind seeing it again, because there's so much stuff packed into it that, and this movie, I almost feel like could have used another 10 to 15 minutes. I appreciate the 2 hour and 5 minute runtime. I think most movies need to be that, and a shorter runtime serves movies that are hurt a little bit by having a longer runtime. But this one, I think you could have used some of that stuff to breathe, instead of, as soon as they get down into the quantum realm, it just kind of sprints off in all different directions.
It was way too fast paced and not enough explaining. 100%. And then I think I texted Eli. I was like, I don't know if it's just me, since I've seen so many of the Disney Plus shows, but now at some cases like this, I wish that they made the universe. I wish this was a Disney Plus show. I wish they took 10 hours to explain the universe, slow down, tell the story rather than just rush through, because they're trying to set up everything that's coming next all in one movie, it feels like. And
they even say in it like, oh, this has been the craziest day ever or whatever. And then you're like, oh yeah, this whole movie's literally in one day, which seems like a little bit.
I really wish that they would have taken the Ant-Man and the Wasp off the title, just called this QuANTuMania. I don't know if you guys do that. I call it QuANTuMania.
QuANTuManiac.
It's like a something on the, what is it? God, I'm so dumb.
The QuANTuManiacs.
The element table or whatever, periodic table. Anyway, take off Ant-Man and the Wasp, call it QuANTuMania, and do it like flip the perspectives. Like, do Kang as your lead character and follow him through the quantum realm. Mix in Scott Lang and whatever, like sell from the opposite side of Janet Van Dyne's story. Have him tell the story, and have him like them coming back into the quantum realm be part of his master plan, and how he got back out of the quantum realm. I think that would have been awesome, and I think you could have still done what this movie wanted to do, which was, get the concept of Kang out. You could have really explored the quantum realm more. You could have put the, Scott Lang and family, band aspect of it a little bit more on the back burner, and continue on with it. I don't know. There's just something missing from this one.
Yeah, I categorize it as like frustratingly mediocre, because like there were things that I liked and like visually thought were cool and stuff, and
right.
like but it was almost like good enough to where like I could see how it could be a lot better, and that was frustrating. I was just gonna go back to Kang, like the after credits. I was a little bit confused with that too. Like, was it like? I guess it was supposed to be both like scary and silly, but I'm also kind of like, why are they assembling?
I don't know. I don't know either. Like
they're like, I mean, I guess they're kind of leaving it open ended, like a lot of after credits are, but like they're kind of like, it seems like they're talking about the MCU characters. They're like, they're just getting into the foray of realizing what this all is. Like, we need to assemble, and it's like, why you assembled thousands of Kangs, and all the Kangs are like super stoked and insane and screaming and like. I don't know. I need to know more about what the context of that.
And also, why isn't this more reactionary to what happened in the Infinity Saga? You know, what if the Council of Kings moving on this was a response to the timeline?
Yeah, that would actually be sweet to be like, oh, because we know that out of literally millions of possibilities, they only beat Thanos in potentially one or extremely few. And so you'd think that would get the attention of the Kangs to be like, this universe, they're the ones that were able to like defeat Thanos and pull out all these miracles. That'd be cool.
But also Thanos would be a massive threat because he would signal that like, oh, we're not the only ones that are conquering time. Like Thanos had the gauntlet, so he was not only going to conquer time, but he was going to conquer everything else, you know, that the Infinity Stones gave him power over. So it just feels like you could have connected that a little bit more. It just feels like we're really disconnected, and you know, you kind of feel in reflecting on where the MCU is at now with this new big bad that they're trying to establish. It forces you to look back in the previous phases, and you know, all the way up to Endgame, and see how they peppered Thanos in and interwoven the gems and how they got them, and you know, everything from Guardians out in space to Cap in 1944 and.
Well, I hope it's not like what Loki alludes to in that, like, they're like, we use Infinity Stones as paperweights. Ha ha ha. This new threat's going to be so much cooler than Thanos. It's like, we don't need to keep one-upping everything. That doesn't make something interesting. Like, to the same point where it's like, not everybody needs to now be smarter than Tony Stark. Like, we don't have to keep saying, well, they built the same thing when they were 5. Like, that doesn't make a character, like, interesting. Like, I hope that we can continue to, like, respect the past while, like, still bringing in something that's just different.
Man, that statement can just encompass so many things outside of just the MCU, you know. That would make the world a better place, you know.
Yeah, for sure. I have a couple other things here that I was going to bring up with the movie. Like, I know we've been talking about it, but one thing, like, okay, you were kind of asking like were the characters really like consequential? And there were so many characters in this. And I also thought it was weird that like Scott Lang is like seemingly the protagonist, but yet he doesn't really like push the story forward like much at all. They get in the quantum realm because of Cassie, and it kind of seemed like from the second they get in the quantum realm, all Scott cares about is Cassie, like the whole movie, which is like cool. Like I get that, like it's a you know, kind of that father-daughter dynamic. But at the same time, I did kind of think it was odd that like Scott is kind of just very reactionary at that point, that you wouldn't typically see like a protagonist being. It's kind of interesting when like I don't know, he kind of like agrees to like get this thing for Kang, even though he knows of like the dangers of letting Kang out. Like he still sacrifices it for Cassie, which is again like fine, like that's a heroic thing, but like I don't know. Yeah, he just felt really like almost like he wasn't the protagonist. It was almost like Janet sort of becomes like more of the 100%. Protagonist because she's the only one that knows what's going on.
They should have called it Janet QuANTuMAnia. That would have made way more sense. It just like, yeah, I agree with that. And what it did is it made it suffer because also like you still have the Janet and Hope dynamic hanging out there. And I imagine that there's things that are left unsaid there. If you haven't told them about, you know, a 35-year affair you had with Bill Murray in the quantum realm, like There's also other stuff, you know.
Yeah, that's the theme of this movie. That's the moral of this movie is, hey, just communicate with people about obvious things, and you could just have stopped this whole thing from happening.
Yeah, for sure.
But I did think that I did like most of Michelle Pfeiffer's like performance in general. I thought she was pretty good,
and she looks great. Like, let's acknowledge that.
Dude, she looks amazing, dude. She has some kind of, maybe she has the same thing that that some of the other characters also have. Like, I mean, Paul Rudd just never ages. Maybe Michelle Pfeiffer has whatever he's smoking. I don't know.
It's peyote, I think.
Maybe peyote. But yeah, looking on Rotten Tomatoes, it's at a 48% critically, which is that the lowest?
Yeah.
MCU movie so far?
That's the lowest before this was Eternals. So but look at the audience score though. That's
84% audience. Yeah.
I can see, honestly, how people can also like this movie. There's a lot of colorful, flashy things. I think Kang is really serviceable in the movie. There's things that they leave out. Is that on purpose? Is it just a plot hole thing? But I can see how people could like this movie. But in terms of like everything in the MCU, you have to take the lens of the entire MCU. So that there's just some of the magic in that I feel like is gone. But I wouldn't give it a 48%. I would give it a solid 50. That would be my.
That's generous, dude.
Hey,
nice.
I think that's fair.
That extra 2%.
I think most of them are 50%.
That reminded me of one more thing I was going to say. The whole Michael Douglas thing about the 1,000-year-old ant thing was also another thing that was like sort of out of left field. Dude, when he's like, oh well, when these ants fell through the thing, they fell it like a different way, and they lived like 1,000 years.
I know,
and it's like, wait, what,
dude? And they established these ants are building a colony, and they built their own tech, which is so stupid. But also, when they go through the portal and they're flying down to the quantum realm, I totally saw 3 ants go in with them, and I remember thinking, oh, that's gonna pay off later. But I didn't anticipate that there would be thousands of ants. That show up.
Yeah, so it's like, wait, those ants just happened to some weird thing happened that they lived 1,000 years. So any of you, that same thing could have happened.
Yeah. Dave, I'm with you.
To give Michael Douglas his own arc to be he comes in with ants at the end.
Dude, can you imagine? Okay, so go with me on this premise, and we're running long on this review, but whatever. We got opinions.
We have 3 minutes.
What if it was Michael Douglas that helped Kang out of the quantum realm? When he gets down in there, finds out that Janet had an affair, has lived this other life for 35 years, and is just devastated by it. So then it becomes he goes off on his own, and Kang manipulates that situation. Is like, I saw them, they were a great couple down here. Really
that would be interesting.
Things, and makes take the craziness of Hank Pym from the comics and bring that back into play. They set it up in the first one so well.
It was extremely it was just like, oh yeah, well, Obvi, I hooked up with other people, and they're like, okay, and it was, yeah.
And then didn't Michael Douglas even say that he had a side chick for Linda. A little bit? Yeah, yeah. Dave, I'm with you with the ant.
Wait,
thing.
You guys never discussed this again in years. You guys never came up.
The ant thing was so blindsiding. What? They're a stage 2 society now, and they're blah blah blah, and
and then it flashes back to all this stuff that had no consequence in the movie. You're like, wait,
no sense at all.
And then he's like, well, I know socialism's a bad word, but
yeah, dude. Oh my god.
Which is comparing ants to socialism doesn't really help the cause all that much.
Wait, so you're saying that it's a hive mind? And,
it's a hive mind of followers, and
there's just capitalist ants somewhere. They're these guys are the problem.
Maybe don't do that. Yeah, that's funny, man. All right, well, I guess that's all we should say about that.
What grade would you give it?
Man, I guess a C.
Finny? B plus.
I'm going C plus on that bad boy.
C plus.
C plus.
Again, it's the respect of giving them ending it with a plus.
I'm never going a full grade.
I almost went C-, and I was like, no, Vince is gonna be sad if I.
Dude, he only did the plus because he was trying to be divergent from your score. Let's be honest. It's the only reason you give a plus or minus to anybody.
Only one of us can have a C grade.
I'm giving it a C+ because they tried. They didn't achieve, but they tried, dude.
That's not good enough.
Dude, I want to add...
They did try.
I want to add, how funny would that whole alien guy be if he judged everyone based off of how many holes they had? They're like, that's Rick. He has 7 holes.
That's already more interesting.
It is, dude. And like, he doesn't talk to people that have less than 3 holes, dude.
So you only have 4 holes.
He's all,
dude, John, they have also they established the character, the guy from The Good Life, right?
Yeah.
Good Place.
Yeah, The Good Place.
Dude, and he can read people's minds. Why don't they know what Kang is thinking? Like, why haven't they been able to overtake Kang? Because they have the tactical advantage of knowing his next move. That was weird.
Yeah, that was interesting. I can't even remember why that guy had telekinetic powers to read minds. That was kind of funny too, but also kind of random also.
It wasn't like
didn't really play out. Yeah.
When he was in talks with Marvel, everybody thought he was going to be Reed Richards, which is hilarious in hindsight, which yeah.
He was probably reading that being like really bummed out.
He's like, oh my God.
He's all, could I? Is that on the table?
It says I'm just a telekinesis guy in the script, but
but maybe that's the reimagined Reed Richards.
There was a Reed in some variant, right? That could read minds.
He's like, my powers do nothing to achieve anything in the story.
He's all, maybe I'm the new Professor X. Or Emma Frost that can read people's minds.
Emma Frost.
He's like, look, I'll take any mutant that can be on a toy or a lunchbox.
Just not Ben Grimm.
Reimagined Emma, okay?
All right. Well,
Eli, what's your score?
We can't just make somebody hot blonde. They got to be different.
I'm sticking with 50% on this one, dude.
50%?
So what grade does that equate
That's not
to?
passing, dude. That's an F
minus, dude.
Yeah. That's a fail, dude. That's a fail grade.
Yeah, I'm okay. I don't.
Yeah, but it's got to be more than that because Love and Thunder was like.
Yeah, you're right. Love and Thunder is the F.
Give it a D.
Iron Man 3 at this point is looking a whole hell of a lot better than it did a couple years ago.
It doesn't look that bad anymore,
dude. But I would say, okay, I would give it a D.
We're sorry, Shane Black.
I'd give a D. Come back, Shane Black, please.
Please. Usher in the next phase.
We'll take your Mandarin shit jokes. Just come back, please.
Did you say a D+?
So bad.
At least it was all a dream sequence. Just come back, please. Yeah, I'll give it a D+. And I, like I said, I meant that. I'm not going to go see it in theaters, but when it comes on Disney Plus, I'll be stoked to watch it again, just to see if now that I know what the story is.
I mean, being down to see it again seems like decent. Like you didn't hate it too much.
Well, I mean, couple that with my confusion and needing to answer certain questions and missing pieces of the plot.
But you're also a glutton for punishment. Like I'm on Eli's Voodoo account, and like he can be 1 week just like trash talking a movie like it was the worst thing you ever see, but the next week I see that he bought it and he owns it.
He owns the original copy, the director's cut, and like the random one they did in black and white. And I'm not complaining because I profit off it a lot. Oh, same.
But I'm just saying.
Well, you can also be kicked off the membership list very easily as well.
Oh, and he swings that fucking.
And my response to that is, you're not wrong. But when you own a Blockbuster, you're gonna have some shit movies in that Blockbuster. So that's. And I'm also not the only one on that account. That. So.
Hold on, Dave. I have a question for you. Has Eli ever stopped your movie while you're watching it just to prove that he can? Because he does it all. Like,
it's happened a couple times, dude. He periodically, he wields his power, and he's like, "Hey, don't remember that I own this, and I'll just cut you off whenever I want." Dude.
I'll cut off somebody an hour and 15 in, and then I'll text them preemptively. You got any sass mouth, and you're off the list. Okay, I'm revoking your Blockbuster. I honestly thought about 1 year printing out and laminating like voodoo membership cards and giving them to people just so that I could like be like, I'm revoking your membership card. But then I was like, that's absurd.
You're suspended for 3 weeks until you can apologize to me.
you didn't rewind. You weren't kind and you didn't rewind.
Well, it rewinds automatically.
Dude, Paige and I, our favorite thing is to go in and see all the movies that Eli never finishes. Like all the movies are at 82%.
Dude, Vince, you know how many people are on my account?
It stops after 25 minutes.
Yeah, dude.
There are 20 people on my Voodoo account. Okay, hopefully Voodoo's not watching. but there are 20 people on my account, so it's not all me, dude.
To it.
Vince, you have all these wet dreams about me that are unfair,
dude.
That being one of them,
and some of them are fair.
No,
it's amazing.
Dude. I'm changing that password tonight, and I'm not giving it to you. So
I've heard that one.
Enjoy
your
Plex. Your Plex, where half of the video files are 480p.
Dude, I gave you my Plex account, and you instantly talk
it's all
shit.
Lifetime movies.
No,
Vince gave me his Plex account. It's literally all Lifetime.
I'm not adding those movies.
Degrassi, dude.
Hold on,
That's
Dave.
it.
I gave Eli.
A combo, dude.
That is. I gave Eli my Plex account.
Degrassi.
He talks shit about all the stuff that I'm not uploading on there, and then on my queue of what I've watched, it's just fucking Repo Man all day long. And then there was even like,
Repo Man?
Didn't you put on Repo? Something. You put on something.
Dude,
what is it? What is it? I'll pull it up right now.
Where there's multiple people.
No, it's just my view.
Everything to me.
Oh, here we go.
Beautiful.
But it is true because anytime I'll be like a little questioning of something that you purchased, like you throw someone under the bus. So you're like, oh, that's my mom. That's my mom. Like,
dude, my mom will. I'll go into my Vudu account and there'll be like 2 new movies that are like. The last one was George Clooney. George Clooney had a movie, like a romantic comedy with Julia Roberts. And I was just like, where did this movie? So I text my mom, or I'll just go into my bank account and I'll see a $10 like transfer of money.
Wow, the tables have really turned, dude. From I remember my dad, like me using my dad's credit card for like $4.99 of something, and he'd have to like sit me down and be like, "Now, was this you or was it Tommy?"
He's all $5.
Like now the inverse where things are popping up from your mom.
All right, I had to once my mom started buying movies and I got a 4K TV. I had to start talking to her about like, hey, if you're gonna buy this movie, buy it in 4K, okay? Because it's the same price.
At least have the decency to buy it in 4K. I'm never gonna watch it, but at least I know it's there.
Yeah, exactly.
So but, Eli,
Vince
let me clear this up.
Stuff, it's crazy.
Operation Repo, that's not you.
Vince, what's your favorite Lifetime movie?
Oh, dude.
Operation Repo?
So hold on, Dave. I gave Eli my Plex and instantly Operation Repo popped up. Season 3, episode 2. So he's invested. And and Moesha episode 1, dude, the pilot.
What was the last one?
Moesha? That's you, dude.
Moesha
that's you. I know it is, dude.
You're all guilty as charged on Moesha.
I'm all go to my grave for Moesha, okay?
My question is, how'd you get to season 3, episode 2 of Operation Repo, dude?
I don't know what that is.
How was it?
Yeah,
I don't know what that is.
What's the season payoff?
I was trying to like wade through all of the Lifetime movies. Yeah,
nice
try.
Vince, all right, you got okay. Come on, what's your favorite Lifetime movie, dude? Dude, it's still out of focus. Oh, there. Oh,
Operation
awesome.
Repo.
I'm glad we took 4 minutes just to get that in here.
Make sure you cut that in. I honestly have never watched a Lifetime movie. Eli, can you say the same?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
On your account, I've watched 3.
Nice.
Is Operation Repo on Lifetime?
Not anymore. After it got canceled.
Basically, this is why I keep my Blu-ray collection still physical copies here because smart. I know that at any instant Eli's going to cut me off, and I'm going to have to
same dude.
Or you'll have Vince taking tabulating all of the movies he thinks that you start and don't finish. Like, hey, what was up with Pride and Prejudice? You didn't think it was good enough to finish?
I just like to finish your movies. That's one thing that I do that I didn't tell you.
We're a great team, dude.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, you can fill us in on the second half.
Almost sweet. The last 15 minutes of Shawshank are the best.
All right. Well, we need to segue into. I wanted to mention a little bit, Vince. Oh, actually, real quick, Vince, can you show your beautiful banner that you made of QuANTuMANia?
Oh yeah, dude.
To the people.
Boom.
I mean, that should be the real poster. That's pretty.
Why couldn't MODOK just have looked like that?
That's a comic accurate MODOK.
But why couldn't they have just made him look? I mean, if again we're in the quantum realm, he didn't need to look like Darren Cross.
Yeah, you imagine if they just did a cartoon face MODOK, dude.
Dude,
I secretly tried to. I forgot that I photoshopped this and made it like a still image because I was trying to move MODOK while you guys were talking, so MODOK was just spinning, and it would have been so great, around. Dude.
All right, let's pull up. Okay, so I just wanted to touch on the news that we have another pushback by Marvel not a pushback, because the pushback is coming from the people. A release date change is coming from Marvel. The Marvels has now been pushed from, what is it? Or put the poster up there.
Just threw it up there. Here we go. We have which one are you looking for?
The Marvels poster.
The Marvels
is also like a new poster that was released.
So we have Marvels.
But as you can see there, July. It was for July. Now it's November of 2023. Yeah, there seems to be a lot of date changes going on with this phase, but maybe it's for the best. I don't know. There's a new poster, and as you can see, there are 3 characters that kind of are looking like they have equal billing in this, which is interesting. I knew that Ms. Marvel was in it, but now we have I'm blanking on what's her name? I'm blanking out on her name.
Monica Rambeau.
Monica Rambeau from the first Captain Marvel, and then got her powers in WandaVision. Kind of don't remember how she got them.
She got it by going through the force field into what was the name of the town that she lived in?
Yeah.
I want to say Pleasantville, but I know that's wrong.
It's something like that. I can't remember.
Anyway, we don't have to dwell on that.
I mean, we dug WandaVision, so no offense to WandaVision. But yeah, I mean, it just kind of got me thinking though that I don't know, like we're looking at phase 5 and phase 6, and there are just so many things going on, and it just made me really think of like, what do we actually care about all these things? Because we have this now, and we have this. I mean, I guess the character of Monica Rambeau is like kind of interesting, but I don't know if it's like something that I necessarily need. We have the Echo series, which I'm kind of still like, is that really going to draw enough interest? I mean, I like the character of Echo, like when, she was like more of a secondary character. Is that going to be able to, we're going to be able to have a whole
Who's Echo
series on that? And then there's Agatha, and I'm also like, again, I loved Agatha and WandaVision, but I'm like, is that now that's going to be its whole thing? Like, can those really? Is there enough interest to really pull those?
Add one caveat to Echo, which will feature Daredevil and Wilson Fisk, which will get people to that show. If they're
why not just put her in as a character? But why are we calling it Echo? Like, why don't we just put her as a character in like crossover with Daredevil? Why does she have to have her own show?
Because they did all of this when they were trigger happy. That's why. And so what you're seeing now with all of the movement of all these dates is they're essentially, in my opinion, it's kind of a white flag. And I think what they're doing is they're going to start scaling everything back because the demand isn't meeting the supply. So I think what they're going to do is they're going to, put us a little bit more into the desert where they make us look forward to these things. And I think it's a smart move.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, and just to add more to that, it's like we have Blade that's been pushed, I think, multiple times. It's had tons of problems. The director dropped out. And then we have Armor Wars, which is now am I correct on this? It was originally called Iron Heart, and they're going to do that, and then they're like, no, never mind, we're going to do Armor Wars, and we're going to have her in it with Rhodey and some other people. And then they were like, oh, never mind again, we're going to do that sometime later in 2028. Not really as a movie, and instead we're going back to Ironheart now. And now Armor Wars is not even on the docket, like anywhere. It just doesn't exist.
Yeah, last I heard, Armor Wars was going to be a movie, right? But
that's what they said.
It went from being a Disney Plus series. Man, one missing component to all of this is I wish that they would just, instead of like, you want to do an Echo show, don't do an Echo show, do an Echo movie. Do a 2-hour Echo movie and put it on Disney Plus. Like, I think if they started doing that, where it's like you have these smaller budget movies that you're putting on your streaming platform, I think it would still get people excited. They wouldn't have to be burdened with 6 to 8 episodes of a show, which I know that the reason they do that is so that they can, basically parse out the dope to subscribers and keep them subscribed. So I know that that's why they do it, but it just, I don't know. I wish that they would do that more, and I feel like it would alleviate a lot of this kind of.
Yeah, I'm just not sure. Yeah, I'm just not sure that some of these things can carry what they think it can carry.
Right.
I don't know. We'll see. Maybe it'll be amazing. I don't know. But that also begs the question. It made me think about, thinking about Kang Dynasty and everything leading up to that. We have Thunderbolts, which is going to come up before then, and yeah. So there's this is from a little while ago. Like, this was the concept art that came out for Thunderbolts when it was revealed what the lineup was going to be. I don't know. So this also got me thinking that I was just kind of like, this team, like, do we care enough about this team? Like, to me, it starts to feel like, okay, yeah, so we have Valentina, obviously, like, that is, like, sort of has been so far as, the evil Nick Fury. Then we have Ghost, Red Guardian, Yelena, Bucky Barnes, U.S. Agent, and Taskmaster. So I'm also kind of like, do we care about this? Like, it starts to me to kind of feel like the Isle of Misfit Toys kind of a thing, where it's like all these characters that, like, sort of like are miscellaneous. We don't really know what happened to them, like putting them together. And it kind of seems like this is Marvel's Suicide Squad, as like, oh, a random, bunch of guys that don't really fit together, which to me is like a little bit disappointing, because I was hoping that this was going to be more of like Dark Avengers, which I feel like is a lot more interesting, which, in 2009, when the comics for that came out, it was really interesting because, they had Green Goblin Osborn ends up gaining the power because the people think that, like, he did something heroic, and so they end up giving him a bunch of political power. The Avengers are disassembled, and so he gets to create his own Avengers team. And so he has, like, they're all like seemingly good people, but they're all like actually just terrible people. And that to me is like so much more interesting than like doing a sort of like Suicide Squad thing. Because if you look at these members, all of them are like they're not bad guys. Like, U.S. Agent is kind of the only one we've seen who's like has this like crazy dark side. The rest of them have already gone through arcs of like, oh, they're like good people basically. They're just like redeemed people. So they're basically just Suicide Squad. Like, Yelena's whole thing has already been played out in Hawkeye. So I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
I feel like it's forced, and I don't care at all.
I mean, I'll put this one in the same category as. Let's see. I don't know. If they've got a cool angle for it. I really like Red Guardian. I think you give him more to do. I think I'm cool with that. I love Bucky. So, while I feel like Bucky needs to be in the Captain America 4 movie, I am intrigued to see how he kind of does in this lineup. But yeah, Taskmaster and Ghost, I don't understand. And I don't know why. I wouldn't be surprised if those two get replaced before the final movie comes out. I don't like what you're not going to have a scene with Yelena and Taskmaster talking to each other. I don't know. And maybe what they're going for is the relationship of these characters to each other from the other movies. So maybe, there's beef between Yelena and Taskmaster based on what happened to Black Widow. I don't know, but it does seem like an odd choice. And it seems like a choice that maybe you hold on to, I don't know. It seems like they're wait a little bit until you have more of like the Spider-Man characters, and why not include some of those characters? And I don't know. It just, it feels a little like they bottom of the barrel.
And that's cool in a vacuum, but I just feel like I can't help but feel like it's a huge missed opportunity when you have Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character, which I love like so much that they brought her in. And obviously she has plans for everything. Like, I don't know. Like, why wouldn't you do Dark Avengers at that point? Like, why wouldn't you bring in people that are like maybe that still is kind of what they'll do. But yeah, I don't know. These are still all good people that wouldn't just do like terrible things or like do what she tells them to. So I don't know. I'm just a little bit confused about how they're going to handle that.
Well, I bet she's got dirt on all of them for some reason or the other. But I still think we're going to get a big Norman Osborn presence at some point in the MCU, because they've reestablished now and soft reboot Spider-Man. So I think all those characters that we want to see the MCU versions of, I think now's the time that we're going to get it, hopefully. But I wouldn't be surprised if they're holding on to Dark Avengers in that storyline. That seems like something.
This just seems like the most perfect time you could ever do that, because there's no Avengers right now. There's a huge hole that needs to be filled, and the people want to be looking towards a hero. So like she could act as the Norman Osborn, like in that. I don't know. The timing just seems too great. It feels like it writes itself, but I guess that's not really what they're doing. But yeah, I agree. Who knows? Could be good. I don't know. I was just saying this that I just feel like it's weird that 4 years ago it's like we were the biggest MCU fans in the world, and now it's kind of like I just have to ask the questions like, do I care about this stuff? And we were kind of talking too and being like, well, is it us that are kind of changing? Like, we're a little bit older now, or is it the material? And, I don't know, maybe it's both. I don't know.
I really think it's both. And I think, I think our whole world's in a weird transitional period right now. And I don't think Marvel's, any different. I think that there's probably a bunch of stuff that we can't see going on behind the scenes between, Marvel producers and Disney and Kevin Feige and all these people that, before maybe didn't have as much say or weren't delegated as much, power, I think might have a little bit more power. And I think people are kind of flexing those muscles a little bit more. And so I think what we're getting are movies that are disjointed and all over the place and maybe seemingly not as cohesive as what came before. But, there is a world, I think scaling back the amount of stuff that you put out is important. And I think to your point, Dave, it's about really like, how are we going to set up the MCU going forward in a way that gets people of all demographics to come back and be excited about it. And I think anytime you can establish a story and string those stories along, you can do that. I just think to your point now, it's like, well, who cares about Ironheart? She had 20 minutes of screen time in Wakanda Forever. Who cares about Agatha? Echo. Well, I'm biased to Echo, if I'm being honest, because if it's the same people, I loved Hawkeye so much that if it's the same people behind that, that intrigues me enough. But I do see your point, and does Echo need a whole dedicated series? No. Should it have been something? And it's one of the other ones that keeps getting moved. So I think we're going to keep, for at least the next couple of years, keep seeing the same patterns of movies we probably like, and then movies that are probably like, I could do without. I'm also losing my voice, so
yeah, I'm enjoying watching you suffer through that.
I know. I'm trying to be as animated. Oh, really quick, Dave. Really quick before I forget. QuANTuMANia. I'm gonna give it a D, solid D now, not a D minus, because they did put a Fletch reference in the movie.
Oh yeah, what was it?
It's when Scott Lang is talking. I think it's to the cake guy, and he just looks up at him and he goes, "God, I admire you." That's such like the way,
that's right. Yeah.
The way Paul Rudd delivered it was so Chevy Chase from Fletch. It made me so happy. I text you when I was in the theater. I just text Fletch reference.
Oh yeah.
Because I didn't want to like spoil anything for you, but yeah. But anyway.
Yeah, that's awesome. I wonder if that was in the script or if that was a Paul Rudd thing. But
I bet it was. I bet it was a Peyton Reed thing.
That's possible for sure. Yeah, I agree with you. Just tying back to that stuff. I mean, who knows? Like, it's easier to be like, well, I don't care about this right now. Maybe it'll be great. Like, we have, they were able to take a talking raccoon and make him a household name.
Sure.
And even Ant-Man, it was like, Ant-Man was like, I can't believe they would even attempt to do an Ant-Man movie. That's so stupid. But like, look where he's at now. Now he's got a trilogy. So yeah, I mean, who knows, man. Yeah, I think it's just what you said. It's like how far are you going to spread yourself? Like, how do you make sure that the quality stays where it needs to be?
And I still look, Marvel. I've had such a good time over the past 12 years or whatever it is now of seeing these movies, and it gives you something to look forward to cinematically. Like when you were a kid, that's the thing that I love about these movies. Of course, you're going to get older, you're going to change. You're going to have kids of your own. And the experience is going to be different, but I'll always be interested in these movies and I'll always give them the time, even to your point about buying movies that are not good movies, but it's like this is
still gonna buy them on 4K.
I just like it's so hard for me to be like, and part of it is I'm, especially when it comes to movies, I'm very much a completionist. And that's a problem when you get into a franchise that is really good up into a certain point and then stops being really good. But, I'm always going to be interested, and I'm always going to, part of me in that is like, well, you should wear the scars too. Of course, you're going to put out 31 movies. You're going to put out movies that are not good. And to be honest, Marvel's put out, more good movies than they have bad up until this point. We'll see.
A lot more, yeah.
But I believe in it, and I root for it. There's a lot of people, I see a lot of trends now of a lot of these websites and YouTube channels actively rooting against. You can tell I have way more in my brain than my voice will allow me to get out, but a lot of these people seem to be rooting for Marvel's demise because it's not meeting some agenda that they have. I try not to go into these movies with any kind of agenda other than is this going to be as good as what came before it? And some of them will get there, some of them won't. Like I said, this one, I don't feel like got there, but it's still a fun enough movie that I would give it a second chance to try and clear up some of the plot holes, or things that I just didn't understand the first time.
Holes. That was a callback.
Holes! Dude, I want to keep going until Eli's voice is just squeaking.
Yeah,
and we're close. That's another 3 minutes.
You got like 3 minutes, dude.
That was a great optimistic way to end, dude. I felt good about that.
Yeah, I mean, I just I've been seeing that all week. I also say a lot of these review websites and stuff, the stuff that they knock movies for is their own personal bias. Like whether that be politically or whether that be, I had a bad experience when I was a kid and this happened to me and something mirrored that in this movie, so this is a bad movie. It's like, no, not everything is going to meet your expectations. And
and that's not about the cinema shouldn't be about what tribe do I think I'm a part of, so I'm going to judge everything like by that lens. Like it's a movie, man. Like, enjoy it or form your opinion on it based on what it is,
or stop going. Like if you're not like me and it doesn't, they've lost you, that's important too. Like, stop going, because that is the only way that things will change is if, and I think we're already seeing it. I think with some of the scheduling changes, we're already seeing them kind of go, oh, we got to do something different here because the ship is, not sinking, but it's definitely clipped an iceberg. So yeah, I'm always gonna be interested to see what they do though.
Cool.
All right. Outro us, Dave? Might be better at this point.
Well, thank you, boys, and I think we've all learned a lesson here. I'm glad we all got to speak, and we'll see y'all next week.
See y'all.
So, from all of us here at QuANTuMANia, good luck and good day.
Ant-Man is in the name QuANTuMANia. But you didn't know that.
It's in the name, so how can you go wrong? Sorry, bye.
Skipping through the end time.